Take a look at this video. It shows one of the latest developments in drone production. These are the homemade bombs used for dropping from the Vampire drone. By the way, this bomb is called Fab 8.5, which obviously indicates its weight. The key thing is the ease of production and the wide use of parts printed on 3D printers. Few people know, but during the Second World War, similar inexpensive aircraft were made of plywood, which were piloted exclusively by women. Today I will talk about the Women's Aviation Regiment, the history of its appearance, the conditions under which the female pilots fought, and at the end of the video I will share the Germans' memories about the Night Witches, as well as the tragic incidents that occurred in the regiment in the summer of 1943. Night Witches, the famous Women's Aviation Regiment, formed in 1941. It served young female students. In 1941, the Soviet Army suffered enormous losses. The enemy was on the outskirts of Moscow. In these difficult days, at the initiative of the legendary pilot Marina Ruskova, the 588th Night Light Bomber Aviation Regiment was formed. In this regard, in October, there was a special order among the women's air regiments. The regiment had 20 aircraft. After a while, their number increased to 45. At the end of the war, there were 36 combat aircraft in service. The training took place on the light plane of the U-2 model, developed in 1928 by the Polikarpov Design Bureau for the initial training of pilots. U-2 used a number of modifications for use in the agricultural, postal, medical, and passenger sectors. At first glance, such machines were of little use for combat operations. They flew at low altitude at a speed of about 100 km/h, which made them easy targets for the enemy. Assembled on a wooden frame with plywood, the Germans nicknamed Russ plywood. However, the Nazis soon had to change their minds. Aircraft U-2 were distinguished by amazing survivability. It wasn't easy to knock them down. The wood and plywood construction, designed to be easier and cheaper to manufacture, withstood hundreds of hits. The planes returned to their airfields literally riddled. The ease of control that this night bomber inherited from its training prototype allowed the pilot and navigator to pay more attention to the accuracy of bombing strikes. Precisely due to the fact that flights on such aircraft did not require the application of great physical strength, they were flown by women, not men. Until the middle of 1944, the crews flew without parachutes, preferring to take an extra 20 kilograms of bombs with them. Initially, there was no radio communication. All navigation was carried out using a stopwatch and a map. There were no weapons on the planes, except for TT pistols. There was also no protection from bullets and shrapnel, as well as parachutes, but there were only 2 bombs that were attached under the wings. The control was dual. The aircraft could be controlled by both the pilot and the navigator. There were cases when navigators brought aircraft to the base and landed after the pilot died. After the bombing, we had a return. Take the bombs again and fly out to new combat missions. The girls said that during the night they made up to 15 sorties. The breaks between flights were 5 to 8 minutes. Sometimes the crew made 6 to 8 sorties per night in summer and 10 to 12 in winter. They bombed German military fortifications, warehouses, and rear bases. During the night, the aircraft managed to make several sorties, and the total bomb load was comparable to that of a large bomber. The tactics were very simple. In front of the target, the pilots turned off the engines, the plane silently glided. They threw bombs, turned on the engines again and flew home. The noise of a gliding plane was associated with the rustle of a witch's broom in the night. Therefore, the Germans called them Nachtshexen, night witches. The navigator of the U-2 aircraft, Alexandra Akimova, recalls, "It was 1943. At this time, the regiment took part in breaking through the enemy's defensive lines on the Terek River. The number of flights grew at an incredible rate. In one night, we averaged 8 or 9 raids on enemy positions. We independently hung bombs and cargo under the planes, the total weight of which sometimes exceeded 300 kilograms. Each shift, every girl could carry a weight reaching a ton. Once the crew returned from a mission on a plane in which there were 30 holes, the landing gear was broken, the fuselage was damaged. The pilots were sure that they would have to be without a plane for 3 days, but their mechanic friends put the plane into operation in 10 hours. Since November 1943, the Regiment of Night Witches supported the landings on the Kerch Peninsula and participated in the liberation of Sevastopol and the Crimea. And in June-July 1944, they fought in Belarus, helping to liberate Mogilev, Minsk, and other cities. I will remember December 1944 for the rest of my life. Then our regiment operated on the territory of Poland, participated in the liberation of Augusto and Warsaw. On one of the winter nights, we made 325 sorties, and I myself 16. For valor and courage, I was awarded Stalin's gratitude. It was much more difficult to fly in winter. When there was wind, the plane dangled from side to side. If you peeked out to get a better view of the target, you got frostbite. My feet were terribly cold in boots, but we continued to fly. On October 15, 1945, the regiment was disbanded, and most of the female pilots were demobilized. Combat losses amounted to 32 people, and although they died behind the front line, not one of them is considered missing. About the night witches, there was fame among the Germans. Silent night attacks had become a psychological weapon. Some Germans did not even dare to go out and light a cigarette in the dark. Shooting down a pilot from this regiment was considered especially prestigious by the Nazis. The Germans who managed to knock out the Night Witch were guaranteed the Iron Cross medal. The most tragic in the history of the regiment was the night of August 1, 1943, when 4 aircraft were lost at once. The German command, annoyed by the constant night bombing, transferred a group of night fighters to the regiment's area of operations. This was a complete surprise for the Soviet pilots, who did not immediately understand why the enemy anti-aircraft artillery was inactive, but the planes caught fire one after another. Messerschmitt Bf-100 and 10 night fighters were fired against us. The flights were stopped, but before that, the German ace pilot, Joseph Kościuk, managed to burn 3 Soviet bombers in the air, along with the crews, on which there were no parachutes. Another bomber was lost due to anti-aircraft fire. Dear friends, that's all for today. If you are interested, I can also make a video based on the memories of the female pilots of this legendary women's aviation regiment. Write please in the comments.